In this episode, I chat with Harley Giddings, who has 3 investment properties by the age of 24 and is on his way to his 4th. Harley has also grown a social following of over 50,000 people across Instagram and TikTok, where he shares the reality of what it's like for him to work 2 jobs 7 days a week. In our chat, he dives into the details of how he was able to invest in property so young and advice he'd give to other people who are trying to get into the market. So without further ado, that's enough from me. Let's get into it. So welcome to the show, Harley.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks for having me, mate. Thanks for the wrap up. It's good to be here.
It's good to chat to you. I'm looking forward to diving into your story a lot and digging into the details. But I wanted to kick things off right back at the beginning for you. You've been on this incredible journey with property. But how did it all start for you? Were you always super driven to get into property, or how did that all start for you?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was always driven to get into property. I would say I was a pretty driven kid. I always knew that I wanted to do something with my life. I was always, I guess, fairly money orientated. My mates used to always make jokes. As kids, we'd go to the Melbourne show and your parents would give you some money to go buy some show bags and go on some rides, and I'd be the kid that would get $50 and I would take $40 home, so I'd only spend the 10, and then just knew that if I just kept banking that money I could buy something better. It was almost, looking back now, it was almost like early kind of delayed gratification. So I always knew that if I wanted a bike or I wanted a Sharon footy or something a little bit more expensive that Mum and Dad weren't always going to buy me, that I'd have to save for it. So I guess I was always pretty conscious to the fact that I would need money. So early days, parents were instilled in me a work ethic. So always, like a lot of people, had the paper runs, different lawn mowing businesses, different things like that. But I've always, I guess, been interested in money and investing. And then at about 16 years old, I guess that's when I really started educating myself and starting to invest.
Okay. So what did you kick off with educating yourself with? How did you first educate yourself? Was it like a book or like a course or?
Yeah, it was definitely a book. So I didn't have much money at all, and shout out to Mum. So it was kind of like, if you're an Australian and you're interested in finance or property or whatever it is, you probably start with the Barefoot Investor. So that was the book that I started with. So it's probably the best $20 Mum's ever spent. But I remember reading that. I might have been roughly 14 or 15 years old, and I just remember kind of learning the concept of compound interest. And I still remember he had a section, and it was like, if you start investing in kind of index funds from a young age, and then it showed like a table, and after 35 years your 10 grand's now worth $1 million. And I just remember reading that and going like, this is bloody crazy. Like, I'll be a millionaire if I do this. Obviously back when you're 14, $1 million sounds like $1 trillion these days. So that's kind of what kick-started my investing journey. So I remember same around the similar time I just started work. So 14 and 9 months, as soon as you were legally allowed to work, I was at the local cafe, working multiple jobs. And then any of my savings I would be putting into index funds. So at the time, I think it's still the same. You have to be 18 to kind of buy shares and index funds. So I had to sign Mum up to ComSec, and we got involved. So I started buying my first indexes at around 16.
Oh, how good. I bet Mum was happy about that.
Yeah, she didn't really have much idea about index funds or anything at the time, but she was happy to help.
Oh, that's awesome. So when did you start, I guess, transferring from index funds into property? When did that kind of kick off?
Yeah, so from 16, I was kind of just a hard worker. I'd be at school, and then I'd work multiple jobs. So like after school and weekends, there was a fair bit of work going on, and I always had really good savings habits. My parents kind of taught me to save, that delayed gratification. If you save your money, you can buy something better. So I was always a fairly good saver. During that time, as I said, so I started with the Barefoot, and I just really got a passion for kind of investing and educating myself, I guess. So I was reading other finance books, other share books, and then I kind of just naturally stumbled across property. And I learnt about leverage. So that's kind of was the main reason that I decided to pivot from shares into property. When I first started out, obviously I didn't have a heap of money, so I definitely wasn't going to be able to buy a property, but just learning about the fundamentals of property and how you can use leverage to kind of further your wealth, that was a big turning point for me. So from 16 through to 22, that's what I was doing, and at around 22, that's when I had enough money and decided to get involved and purchase my first investment property.
Okay. What was the process like of getting that first investment property? Because you said like it was 6 years from 16 to 22. You're saving up, you're working lots of jobs. What was like the process like of like learning all that stuff to get into that first property?
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of flying blinds. Like looking back now, like everyone that invests in property, everyone wishes they started sooner. I'm the same. I'm still happy I started at 22, but a lot of flying blind. So yeah, just reading books, didn't know what a mortgage broker was at the time, didn't think that I would be able to get a loan, even though I was working 40, 50 hours a week as a casual, thought you needed a full-time job. Just these kind of things that you don't really know until you know. So yeah, it was natural progression just from educating myself. And then at the time I definitely didn't have the confidence to purchase on my own. So I actually used a buyer's agent who I'd listened to and done a bit of research on. So he helped with the first purchase, and then continued educating and got on to the next two, this time on my own.
Okay. Would you like recommend to like first buyers they should use a buyer's agent or like go into it themselves, or like what would you recommend?
Yeah,
I mean, I know it's not financial advice, but like, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. None of this is financial advice, but it really depends. So if you're in a position to be able to buy now, like educating yourself, it's not a quick process. It's not an easy process. If you are someone that plans to build a decent portfolio, or you're interested in property, I would definitely be looking at doing the kind of self-education path. But then again, if you're ready to buy now, that path might be a year, it might be 2 years of educating yourself before you feel confident enough to buy. And in that time, what has property done? There's an opportunity cost of not buying now and holding out. But if you do, on the flip side, if you do have time, you're just saving your deposit now, you're actually not in a position to buy, I'd definitely be looking at educating yourself. Even worst case scenario, if you decide down the track you still want to use a buyer's agent, it just means you're going to have more idea when that buyer's agent brings you a property. You're going to know what you're looking at. You can kind of run your own numbers and I guess fact check them a little bit and make sure that it is a great investment that you're going to buy.
Okay. Is that like how you were educating yourself, like with podcasts and books? Like, I know you were on the Property Couch podcast and the Piece of Property one, but like, were you listening to those podcasts, or how are you educating yourself?
Definitely, I would definitely recommend when you first kind of start out, books and podcasts. Like, it's the best return on investment you're ever going to get. Most podcasts are free and books might be $20 or $30. So all of my early education was definitely through both those streams. As you said, I featured on the Property Couch. That was probably my first podcast that I ever listened to. For anyone kind of starting out, their first 20 to 30 episodes is it gives you a really good understanding of kind of the fundamentals of property. They really break down in simple terms what are quite basic, I guess, terms now looking back, but at the time I had no idea what a mortgage was, what a buyer's agent does, what an accountant does, what like borrowing, all of these kind of things that you take for granted now that you know. At that stage when I was first starting off, I had zero clue. So their podcast was great. And there's definitely been a few others that I've started listening to. So if you're just kind of getting started in property, definitely start with some books and podcasts and just get that real foundational level of knowledge. And then from there, I started looking to courses and mentoring to kind of learn the more advanced kind of strategies and how to really buy well.
Okay. So I guess you've got your first one, and then you've gone on and purchased two more, and on your socials, you said you're like looking to buy a fourth. What was the process like of going through to buying a second and third? Did much change from the first one? I mean, obviously the buyer's agent, but like, what else changed?
Yeah. So at that time, you kind of get the bug when you first kind of purchase a property. If it's an investment property and you start seeing it do well, it's quite an addictive feeling. So purchased that first one. It did see a lot of growth early, which was great. So the buyer's agent did well. But that was the time where I really kind of just got clear on my goals and knew that I wanted to be building a large enough portfolio. So I knew maybe spending 15 to 20 grand on a buyer's agent every time wasn't gonna be in my best interest, because I wanted to build a big enough portfolio, and I was also very interested in property. So I did want to learn it. I did want to educate myself. Like, majority of buyers agents didn't use buyers agents when they were building their portfolios. They educated themselves. So yeah, I guess I just spent those kind of the 12 months before purchasing that next property. I was pretty serious into self-education. So did a lot of courses, spent some money, got the right people in my circle, got the right mentors around me, and they really helped me kind of get to that next level.
Okay. What are some of like the main metrics you're looking for when you're looking to invest? Like, how are you going through and choosing like a state and then a suburb and a house after that? Like, how are you going through that?
Yeah, so as I said, I'm looking at my fourth investment property at the moment, so I'm currently going through this process again. It is a bit tedious, so I've narrowed down to 40 suburbs from the 15,000 that we have, so that it's a filtering process. So at the end of the day, all of my investment decisions are made on data. So I've narrowed down to 40. I'd hope to get it down to around 3 to 5 suburbs, and that's when I can start looking to build relationships and speaking to property managers, local sales agents, all those kind of things, and start trying to source a property in that area. In terms of the data points, if you look online or you look in books, there's a million different data points that you can kind of look at, and you can kind of get a bit of analysis paralysis, where there's too much data and you end up not making a decision. So it ultimately just comes down to, again, education and knowing what exactly to look for. Just a few off the top of the head, like stock on market. So for example, I've got a figure that I want the stock on market in the suburb to be under, and it's also positive if it's trending downwards, even if it kind of fits in the range of where I want stock on market percentage to be in that suburb, but it's trending upwards. Well, then that's a negative, because if a month or two keeps continuing that trend, then all of a sudden it's not somewhere that I want to buy. So it's not just like a one size fits all data point. There's a lot that kind of goes into it. So yeah, I've got my set of criteria that I look for, but we could be here all day if we went through it.
100%. It's pretty cool, just like getting a little bit of an insight into it. Even how you mentioned, like, you've narrowed it down to 40 suburbs. It's like, whoa, I can't even imagine the process of going from 1,500 to 40. That's crazy. So I guess like a lot of the listeners are kind of aged between 20 and 30. What would be your advice to someone who's maybe like 22, they've got $10,000 in savings, and they're going, in 5 years, I want to own a home. What do you reckon would be like their advice to get towards that goal?
Yes, I've got a million pieces of advice, but
okay,
I'll try and narrow it down. The most important for me would just be getting clear on why you actually want to do it and what you actually want to achieve. So there's no point getting into property and kind of going in blind and not having a plan, because what you want to do is really going to determine how you attack the problem that you're trying to solve. So for me, I have a quite aggressive passive income target that I want to reach in my 30s. So it gives me around 14 to 15 years to achieve this goal, which is I'm looking to have a passive income of around $250,000 a year in my 30s. So I'm not really close to that at the moment, but to be able to reach that figure, I'm going to have to be quite aggressive in the number of properties that I purchase in that time. Whereas if someone who's, like you said, looking to buy their first, maybe they just want one or two. There's so many different goals, and like our pathways are going to be so different. I guess that's just going to give you the clearest picture on what you need to do. If you're, like you said, you're 20 odd and you've got the 10,000 in savings, straight to my mind, the first thing I would be doing is sitting down and having a real check on your finances, see what your budget is, see what you're spending money on. Obviously everyone's running their own race and people have different costs and expenses, but you've just got to have a look and be honest with yourself and see what you're really spending money on and how you can get into that first deposit if that's what you're wanting to do.
So one thing you mentioned there about finding your why, and you mentioned like you had a goal of having that 200 to 250,000 passive in your 30s. How did you like find your why, and like how did that affect your goal? I'm just curious how you went through that process.
Yeah, so the goal is kind of the thing you're working towards, but I can promise you along the way you're gonna lose motivation, you're gonna have doubt, you're gonna want to give up, and that's where your why kind of comes in. So for me, my why is my family and my future family. So my current family have sacrificed a lot to, I'm in a very fortunate position. I still live at home, as everyone would know if you watch any of my stuff. So I'm obviously in a very fortunate position. But I also work 7 days a week, 70 hours a week. And the reason I do so is because my family have sacrificed and are willing to give me a leg up. And I couldn't think of anything better than to be able to kind of give them a leg up down the line and return the favour. So that's why I work so hard. At the end of the day, it's not just for myself. So it's very easy to lose motivation, but like I said, it comes down to consistency. So if you're consistent, you know your why and you know your goal, there's really nothing you can't achieve.
That's pretty awesome. Like, how did you find your why? Did you always know that was going to be your why to like set your family up, or was it something like you found later on in life, or?
Yeah, I don't. I've always kind of been like a family kind of orientated person. My mum, especially mum's side of the family, they're real kind of close knit family, and money's never like a topic. It's always just about family and all of that. And I was always kind of the driven money kind of kid, but she's given me that side of the family. Like it's really kind of, I guess, balanced me out. And yeah, I couldn't think of anything better than being able to provide back to them for all the sacrifices they've undoubtedly made.
That's awesome. Well, I wanted to switch gears into a bit of the stuff about your non-negotiables. So for any of the listeners, if you haven't checked out Harley's Instagram or his socials, it's a pretty awesome documentation of like his life and how he works so many hours and just the raw reality of all the work that he puts in. But one of the things you have on the socials is you have these non-negotiables that you kind of share that you do every day. So for the listeners, like, what are those non-negotiables? And I guess, like, why did you choose those ones specifically?
Yeah, so the non-negotiables for me, I'm a very routine-driven person. I don't know if it's because I'm 24 going on 74, but I love my routine. I love getting up and being productive, and I know that if I'm hitting these non-negotiables, I'm going to get closer to my goal. So these non-negotiables do change from time to time. The kind of the basis of the non-negotiables stay the same, but what it is I'm trying to achieve at that time is ultimately going to decide what my non-negotiables are. So at the moment, I do 20 minutes of reading every day. As I said, I'm always learning. I've got a bookshelf to the left of me with about 100 books. I think there's 20 new ones that I've ordered and I haven't got to them yet. It's an addiction, but I do my 20 minutes of reading every day, and it's almost like that consistency factor where it's, rather than leaving a big task, I'm chipping out away daily. So 20 minutes isn't a massive period of time. So I get my 20 minutes of reading in. I try and get some exercise done every day. So whether that's gym, whether that's going for a walk, whether that's going for a run, whatever it is, getting a bit of fresh air is great, especially for someone that works from home and can sit at a desk all day. It's good to get outside and get the body moving. So that's another non-negotiable of mine. And then these are the other ones are kind of ones that can change. So at the moment I'm studying to be a mortgage broker. So I've got my diploma of mortgage broking. So I try and get a little bit of that done every day. And then, like I said, you said previously, I do have a page, Property with Harley, and I try and post some content every day. So that takes up a fair bit of time too. So yeah.
Dude, like how do you not get burned out? Because I want to, like, you have so much going on, and I'm just trying to figure out how you do it all, because it's like so incredible. But like, you have like the social stuff, you have 2 jobs, like you do studying mortgage broking, and like you also fit in all these non-negotiables as well. It's like how do you not get burned out? Is it just like you never stop, or like?
Yeah, I feel like if I stop, I like not comparing myself to a shark, but if I stopped swimming, I'd probably die. So I do just like that. I do like being busy. I've never been so happy, like seeing all the growth in my life in the last kind of 6 to 12 months. It's been great, and it's really rewarding. From a investment perspective, when you like work so hard for your money and then you start seeing your money multiply because of investments doing well, it's a great feeling. And same with the posting and stuff. It's been amazing building a community along the way. I am incredibly busy. Sleep's not a priority at the moment. I kind of crash a couple of times a week, but again, it's a period of my life. It's not going to be forever, and I don't think there's a successful person alive that didn't at some stage have to sacrifice a bit of sleep and have a busy schedule. So I feel like that's just the part of life I'm in at the moment, is just put your head down and bum up and get to work.
Wow, that's awesome. I feel very motivated after that to go pick up more things and work a lot harder. So it's pretty awesome. You mentioned books, like you do the 20-minute reading. What have been like some of, I guess, like your favorite books, or some of the books that you'd recommend that people should read? And they don't have to be like property related. They can be just some of your favorite. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll keep it completely away from property. There's a few, especially if your kind of audience is that 20 to 30 range. First one, which was probably the most impactful book that I've ever read, which is quite a common one again, is Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's just, again, like my non-negotiables were kind of based on that book, where it's start with something small. So whether it's reading 2 pages a day and just do that 2 pages every day, whether it's going to the gym and doing 1 exercise. His book just kind of talks about just kind of reaffirming these daily habits. And when you keep adding these daily habits up over time and keep compounding it, you're going to see a great result. So reading a little bit every day, maybe it's 5 minutes, maybe it's 10 minutes, but if you read 5 to 10 minutes every single day of that year, you've probably gone through 4 or 5 books that you wouldn't have read. So it's just like the compounding, I guess, compounding habits and the impact it can have on you. So that was a really good one. Another one, speaking about the audience of 20 to 30, is The Defining Decade by Meg Jay. So she talks about her 20s as a defining decade. So obviously everyone kind of knows your 20s for most people is about having fun, discovering what you want to do. It's not too serious of a decade in your life. You kind of just entering adulthood, and a lot of people do enjoy their time, which is what it's for. You're meant to kind of be finding what you want to be doing. But her book, which I really kind of align with, is yes, you want to be finding what you want to do and what you want to achieve and having fun along the way, but you also don't want it to come at a cost to your 30s, where then you're playing catch up for the rest of your 30s because you partied your whole way through and you didn't give yourself any structure or anything to work towards in your 30s. So that's what I kind of like really strive myself. Yes, as I said, I'm really busy, but I'm also a 24-year-old, so I try and be social. I try and travel every year. But yeah, so I'm trying to get that balance. I'm not always great at it, but I've got the investment and the serious Harley on this side, but I also got to smell the roses along the way and just remember I'm still a kid.
That's awesome. That's some really great advice. I heard on another podcast you really liked The Alchemist as a book. I've got to ask you, like, why you liked this one, because this is also one of my favorite books. But whenever I recommend this to someone, no one ever reads it because I think they think it's like a novel or like, yeah. So I'm just curious, what do you like about the book and how would you recommend it?
Yeah, it would have, if you asked me the top 3, I didn't want to take up too much time, but The Alchemist definitely was the next suggestion. It's a small book too. Come on, people. It's not a massive book, so you can get through it. I think it's just a great kind of story of pursuing your goals. So about 6 months ago, 8 months ago now, geez, the year's flying, I started posting. I decided I want to start getting my story out there and really kind of, I guess, help other people realize that you can kind of get into property, you can get ahead, you can do these kind of things and find your purpose. And I think that's what The Alchemist is, where it's you've really just, like, you're put on this earth for some sort of reason without trying to get too deep. But that life's too short not to be chasing your goal, chasing whatever it is that you want to do. So yeah, go out there and have a crack. So that's what I decided 8 months ago, that I want to start posting, and it's hopefully the beginning of the next chapter of something big for me.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. So you started posting at the start of this year. You've grown to like 30 something thousand on Instagram. What was like, I guess, your reason behind starting the page? Like, did you kind of just want to share the reality of this is how you've done it, or like you wanted to help people, or like, yeah, how did that all come about?
Yeah, it was. I definitely had always wanted to do, I guess, kind of get my story out there. I was worried how it was going to be perceived when I first started. I definitely didn't want people to think that I'm coming out bragging about what I had. When I first started posting, only about two of my mates knew that I even had a property. I still remember me posting, and a few of my friends are like, "What the hell are you talking about? Like, how did we not know this?" And I'm like, "Well, it's not something I really just have a conversation about. Look at the properties that I own. Like, it does sound like you're bragging when you say it like that." But I just got to the point where I decided, I'm like, I'm a very ordinary person. I live at home. My full-time job, I make 70 odd thousand a year. My second job, I make another 30, but it's because I work two jobs 7 days a week, and I work 70 hours a week. I save well. Like, what I'm doing is quite repeatable. Like, if I can do it living at home and working my butt off, there's a lot of people I know out there that could do well and could get into property themselves. So I just decided to start posting, start sharing as much free kind of information and stuff for the next generation. A lot of my viewers, it's great now. I get a lot of nice messages, but it could be anywhere from 16 through to 25, but other typically guys, but we get girls and that too, which is great. But that they've started their savings journey, and it's just really makes me chuff thinking that, like, the messages I get where they say I've started saving and I've saved 10 grand because of watching your videos, and I'm like, it's just making an impact on those kind of next generation, which is why I posted in the first place.
Yeah, I think it's just so awesome how you're able to show just like the raw reality of how you've done it. Like, there's almost like nothing glamorous about it. It's just you working really hard and showing the reality about it, which is like pretty awesome that you're able to, I guess, inspire a lot of people too, because I think maybe in our generation in Australia, that's like something a lot of people are thinking about. It's like the Australian dream of one day owning your own home. And so it's pretty cool that you're able to do that.
I was just going to say, on that's again, one of the points was I didn't want to like glamorize. You see so many people on social media, and you could glamorize the owning properties, and I'm living the life, and I'm like, yes, it's great that I've got these properties, but it's also a lot of hard work. So that's why I definitely didn't want to shy away from kind of showing the hard days, the 15-hour work days, the days you get no sleep, and that side of it, because I think it's really important that people don't go into property thinking that it's all sunshine and rainbows. It's definitely not. It's a lot of hard work, but yeah, so that's why I try and keep it as authentic as possible.
That's amazing that you were so intentional about that. One thing I've noticed about your socials is you are always so positive. Like, I think that's like an admirable characteristic that when I watch your content, I'm like, wow, like this guy could complain about so many things, but you're always so positive and so grateful. And yeah, I was just curious, like, have you always been that way, or like, was that something you intentionally have kind of developed over time?
Yeah, I'd say I've always been a fairly positive person, but I've probably made more of a point of it in the last 4 years or so. I really hate complainers. I hate complaining. I don't think it really gets you anywhere. But like on a deeper note, I remember during COVID, I lost all four grandparents within about a year through cancer and different battles. And that was a really tough time in my life, and I was kind of finding that I was complaining, kind of kicking the dirt, and even just like before that, they actually passed, and as I said, going through cancer and their battles and seeing how tough that they were doing, it just kind of really opened my eyes that I'm in my 20s, I'm fit, I'm healthy, I've got a great family, I live in one of the luckiest countries in the world. Like, I really have nothing to complain about. Yes, I'm flogging myself, and I dread going to work sometimes when you just want a day off, but I just don't think that being negative or complaining ever ever helps. So yeah, I just, especially in my videos as well, try and spread some positivity. Hopefully it brightens up someone's day. But yeah, I'm in no position to complain. There's a lot of people doing it a lot tougher than I am.
Wow, man, that's an absolutely awesome attitude, and I feel like that's definitely something I need to work on. So I appreciate you sharing that. That's awesome. Well, I wanted to work towards finishing up. So the final segment is it's called the rapid fire finishes, and it's just 4 rapid fire questions for a bit of fun to get to know you. But the first question is, what is your favorite book? And I think we've already talked about this, but feel free to answer a different one.
Ooh, this is me looking at the bookshelf right now. What's coming to mind? Oh, it's hard to go past. We'll go The Defining Decade to match your audience, Josh. I reckon that's a really good book talking about the 20s.
Awesome. What's your favorite movie?
Ooh, again, this is probably my least favorite question, because it should always be a top 5, not what your favorite movie is. But I can never decide. Shawshank's really good. I like the new Oppenheimer, and I'm a Finding Nemo fan from a kid. I'll give you an animation as well.
Oh, Finding Nemo. Whoa.
Yeah.
I like it. Throwback.
Yeah.
If you could have dinner with any 3 people, dead or alive, who would you want to have dinner with?
Ooh, my nan, LeBron James, because he's the greatest to ever play any sport ever. Oh, who's third? Probably Warren Buffett. Just be interesting to have a chat with Warren and see if I can sniff out any of his funding. That'd be great.
What a table that would be. Although
interesting table.
I can't believe you've chosen LeBron and not MJ, but it's okay. We'll go past that.
It's called taste.
I love it. And then the final question: if you could know the truth to any one thing, what would you want to know the truth to?
That's a tough question. Is all the hard work you're doing gonna pay off? I've got that thought in my. I know that I'm gonna work hard enough, and if I keep doing it, I'm gonna achieve my goals. But it'd be pretty nice to know as well that it's definitely gonna pay off, because there's some tough days, as we know.
That's a very wholesome answer. I quite like that. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Harley. I really appreciate all the lessons you learned. I think you're such like an inspiration to a lot of people in their 20s and 30s who are looking to go towards the Australian dream of owning a home one day. And I think it's just such an awesome story that you're sharing. But before you go, is there where would be the place the best place that people can go to follow you or follow your journey? Is it your Insta, your YouTube? What's the best place?
Yeah, so I've got all the kind of the platforms, so Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, it's all Property with Harley. So I try and get daily videos on the Instagram and TikTok, and then a weekly YouTube video where I can dive into some more property topics with a little bit more detail. But that's where you'll find me, and thanks again for having me on the show. It's been great.
Awesome. Thanks, Harley.